Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Holly Baxter back on the show, solo this time because she's only been on for 2 roundtables previously, and it was a great podcast, great discussion. She recently competed with WBFF, and we touch upon what was different this time round. She actually had to go about losing muscle. What was that like for this contest prep? We talk about performance-enhancing drugs, and then we dig into some of the things that maybe you don't see on social media, some of the downsides when you are competing and some of the costs of competing that you probably want to be aware of that maybe not too many people talk about. Really fantastic discussion, guys. I think you're going to enjoy this a lot. And as a reminder, if you love these podcasts, you love learning, you'll love our email because we now and then chuck out tidbits of information that I think are really valuable to you guys. We don't spam you with rubbish. It's all great information that's really valuable. If you want to sign up to our email list, that's also linked down in the description too. But without further ado, let's get into the chat. Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive Stronger podcast. I'm your host, as always, Steve Hall, and today I have Holly Baxter on the podcast. This is actually Holly's, I guess, 3rd time. We've actually had 4 episodes come out with you, Holly, but the previous, I guess, 2 roundtables were roundtables, so I haven't had Holly on just one-on-one, and I thought it was about time, and there'd been several requests asking for Holly to come back on the show, so I definitely wanted to oblige the audience. But for those who don't know Holly, she is a dietitian and nutrition educator. She co-founded, I think, the app a lot of maybe the listeners will have also heard of is the Carbon Diet Coach app. And she is a WBFF pro and a coach herself. And we're going to be digging into some of that. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you kind of want to let the listeners know. And it's been a while since you've come on. So you've been up to a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, most recently, I've just started my own coaching, all-female coaching team. I guess the whole idea behind that was built by females, designed for females. So I'm in the process of gathering a team. Oh my gosh, I've been interviewing up to my ears. I've been sleepless nights, but you know, when you're so passionate about something, yeah, it's all very worth it. So that's the only thing that's new since last time we've come on.
Yeah, I can imagine this is actually a question. I had actually thought about asking you this. I haven't actually sent it to you or like said anything about it, but it's something I sometimes think about. Obviously, I host this podcast and like I want to bring on a swath of people. And I'm always looking and I'm like, there's not actually that. I regularly have male guests, not regularly have female guests. I don't know if you have any thoughts to why there aren't as many females kind of in the space, especially in like high-level educators. They don't tend to be within the evidence-based space. There's just not as many as them. You're kind of one of a select few, at least from what I have seen.
Yeah, I wish that I had a strong answer for you. I think, you know, there's a lot of incredibly intelligent women out there that, you know, have pursued exercise science. You know, I'm one of those people, and there are a lot of women, but I think, you know, there was such a saturation in the industry itself, I think, with males that were already existing. So because women are now coming through kind of in the shadow of males, I think it's just a lot harder for us to kind of be known and then be taken seriously. And I think if you look at, you know, some of the like marketing strategies and sales tactics, typically women are the buyers. That they're the ones that are kind of buying products moreover than males, particularly in this industry. And then I think females also trust males, and sometimes they trust males more than females, which is really bizarre. Yeah. So I think we've kind of got, you know, this dichotomy where, you know, women want to be recognized in the fitness industry, but we also don't want to buy from females. So it's really, really bizarre. And I'm really, you know, hoping that we can get a bit of a movement where like we can have these intelligent women kind of come together and, you know, support each other. And I think it's just a matter of time before we start to get some individuals that are stepping into this scene and, you know, blowing it up for, you know, females as a whole.
Yeah, I think there's probably, like, you could probably do a huge podcast just on this subject because there's probably so many angles you could attack it from, even down to the fact I'm a male, so probably slightly biased towards bringing other males onto the show potentially as well, and that sort of thing. And I guess it's originally bodybuilding, at least in physique sports, were a male-dominated thing. Like they were first, like through, like bikini was actually still fairly new, and that's something we're going to jump into actually, is kind of how that's morphed over time. But do you have a specific target audience audience for your coaching? Is there kind of, if there's people listening, you think, I don't know, they might be the person that will want to seek you out?
Can you ask that again? Sorry.
Have you got like a specific, I don't know what it would be called, an avatar? Is there like a specific woman that you're trying to help, or is it quite broad?
Honestly, I think I'd like to be able to be broad. My initial interest and reason for being in the industry was because I found myself, stumbling into the bodybuilding space. And I've kind of lived that life, and now I'm kind of coming out the other side. I'll say coming out from the darkness, and seeing women for who they are. And there are so many different, demographics that need support and that don't have the means and the tools or resources to get, evidence-based information. So I think, I'm going to probably attract people that are more generally interested in their health and well-being. I'm still going to have the women that are highly focused on bodybuilding because that's where I've come from. That's kind of how I am known. And I'm still in that industry myself competing. But, I love the idea of empowering females. I've joked with friends that, I'm probably at some point in my life going to become a feminist, and I'll be a cat lady because I'm just so passionate about it. And I think, some of that lends itself because of my history. I know I haven't spoken or touched on a lot of that stuff with you in past episodes, but there's been a lot of, major traumatic life events that have kind of been the reason for why I am in this space. And I think kind of having worked through, some of that trauma and, have done the healing process that needed to be done, I just know that there are so many other people that are in my position, and, their traumas or their experiences might be a little bit different to my own experiences. But the root cause might be different, but the symptoms, which often lead to things like eating disorders, low self-confidence, low self-worth, the symptoms are the same. So, I just know that I can relate to such a broad demographic of women and really help them step into their shoes, find their true self through the power of education. So, yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm sure you will. You're attract obviously the physique competitors because of your background, but yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of women that have heard that really appeals to. And actually, final question, is it for females only, or will you also be coaching men through that service?
That's a really good question. I've had to think a lot about this. I've sat with it for a while. And it's so funny. I've had about 3 or 4 males sign up just in the last week or so.
Okay.
Which is kind of ironic. But look, I won't say no. And I think, any of my team, they're probably not going to say no either, because at the end of the day, I feel like our purpose is here to help people. And, if somebody wants our help, male or female, I probably am not going to turn them down, truly. But I think the marketing efforts, the products, the services that we are sharing and bringing to you guys are really kind of going to be focused on, helping women specifically.
Guess now, even that question.
Half the audience is gone now, guys. I promise I'll look after you.
I was just going to say, it's 2022 now. So male, female, it's well, we're fluid. It's kind of, it's one of those. So you're here and you're ready to help as many people as possible.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That sounds fantastic. And I guess to go on to kind of the way I was going to lead this podcast was, I believe you are now just under 10 weeks from having competed at WBFF Worlds. Is that right? Is that around that time?
I think it's been, August. So what is it now? It's November or early November. So August was my World Championships for the WBFF. I placed 4th this year. So I regressed, but it was a calculated risk. And I'd love to talk a little bit about that. So if we think about most bodybuilding federations, the leanest person on the stage, the most symmetrical person on the stage, the person with the best overall, physique and look, if they're attractive, that all plays into it. And it's certainly similar for the WBFF. However, they kind of came out with a bit of a statement earlier in the year that they were supporting, or they had the desire to shift away from that performance enhancing drug look, which, for females, it is extremely lean. It can be dangerous if you're competing in, the women's physique or figure or bodybuilding. They've really they set the stage for accepting a slightly softer, more feminine look, because it's a show. I don't know if your audience have ever, watched one of these shows online, because they do stream them live. It's like a Victoria's Secret runway show. Like, it's sexy, it's loud, it's like you're going out for the night. Like, it's really fun. And I think that's what appealed to me, because, as a female, yes, we like the idea of being able to go into the gym and push hard, work through these, challenges and setbacks, and you've got this big goal. But, when you go and do a competition, and I've competed in these other federations previously. So I was with the IFBB or NPC, as you guys call it here in America. And I just didn't really feel like I got a chance to also express my femininity. They're in a bikini, but, it was all very scripted, very, carefully crafted. Everyone's doing the same thing. And I was like, I look a little bit more different than this. I would like to show my own sense of personality and my own flair. So the WBFF they give you all that opportunity. Like, there's theme wear, you can customize it however you like. There's no structured routines. So it really is it's such a subjective sport, even more so than, these other federations. So I think I kind of showed up this year with a softer physique, and unfortunately it didn't pay off. The leanest girl on the stage still didn't win.
Right.
I think that builds character. I think, you live and you learn. And I think there's always going to be a little bit of politics in some of these competitions. But I had a great time. It was really fun.
I guess so the look you brought to stage this time round was softer than you'd previously taken to stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did an 8-week prep, which is unheard of. Yeah. Yeah. So I still did lose, I guess I'll say it in pounds and kilograms. I lost about probably 12 pounds and 4 or 5 kilos for that show, which is nothing in comparison to previous years where I've, lost 30 pounds through a prep and, 15 kilograms. So I've kind of done so many different types of preps. And this year I thought, as an individual, and where I see, my purpose in this, in this organization, and I guess globally, I want to be a voice that kind of encourages women to, love themselves how they are. I've really kind of shifted away from, this insecure version of myself that, really relied heavily on external validation. And part of me felt like, as a fitness professional in the nutrition and health space, that I needed to uphold this, certain appearance year round. And by gosh, it's totally unrealistic, especially if you have family and lots of responsibilities like I do. It was just really tough. So I thought, I'm going to go with what they're saying and hold that to be true. I really kind of came forward and said, look, I still pace myself. Previously, I would have been terrified to do that, because I'd be so worried that I had a little bit extra body fat, which would have really hit me on a deep personal level, not just from the perspective of I might not win this competition. I also felt still quite insecure in the past. So it was a really nice eye-opening experience to prove to myself that, number one, I can do this competition without an eating disorder driving the process. It was truly me just, okay, I'm just going to do this because it's a competition. And then to be able to get on stage softer and be able to embrace myself. So, yeah.
It's great to hear that kind of despite the placing, you still kind of got what you wanted from the process. It sounds like in terms of away from the condition that you were previously, were you a couple of kilos away from that, or was it more significant than that?
No, it probably only was a couple of kilos. Yeah. I probably needed another 2 weeks. And I just thought, I'm not going to grind myself to the cows come home. I just kind of embraced how I was. I still had abs. I think I looked great. I looked very feminine, in my opinion. I think we'll often get a lot of criticism, when you're around that competition time by bypassers, people in grocery stores, or even just people in the gym. It's not always, you don't always get positive feedback. Some people are like, oh, wow, you're too muscular. You don't even look like a girl anymore. So, It can. I mean, women aren't meant to be at that low body fat percentage, so we do look different. But I think I've kind of, brushed that off. It's part of the competition. But yeah, I was only a couple of pounds, heavier than I have been, so it wasn't too significant.
Yeah. I mean, I can see you here stood like with shoulder, like the conditions coming through, everything. So I know you are certainly in very good condition, considering this is now like almost 10 weeks post. So you're certainly right there. And it's funny when you talk to people who don't necessarily understand the sport, they do tend to come, it gets sexualized quite easily. So like, oh, that's not attractive. Like, oh, that's too lean, whatever. It's like, well, that's not what we're going for here.
Yeah. Exactly.
But did you ask for judges' feedback or anything like that? Because obviously you were trying to go to what you thought the new judging criteria was. But I don't know if it sounds like they regressed back to where they were judging previously.
Yeah, so I did actually. The morning after the show, a couple of us were all down at breakfast, and we ran into the owners, the organisers of the event, and the feedback was interesting. So again, it's so subjective, right? Even down to the point of, I guess, Paul Dillett, the owner, he actually said, I've seen you as a blonde, like platinum blonde, and I've seen you now with dark hair. He's like, he said, literally, his words were, I don't like your dark hair. So I was like, wow, okay, I'll try not to take that like personally. But that's the thing. It's a really tough sport. Like, you've got to be okay with getting criticism. And I think, not everybody is ready to take that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you don't like it. I like my hair, but that's something to consider. It makes sense. He, as a male, his wife, Alison, wonderful, lovely lady, platinum blonde as well. I'm like,
sure,
that makes sense.
It makes sense.
So
Yeah,
it is. And if you've got somebody on the judging panel that likes a certain look, even if you've got the best physique and the best costume, and you're perfectly in symmetry, top to bottom, awesome glutes, whatever. You've still got a panel of judges who have different tastes. So it is what it is. But outside of hair color, he kind of pointed out, you weren't as conditioned. You set the standard last year when you came in at Atlantic City, and that's your look. So I was like, okay, well, I guess the conditioning was good in my case, because, and I will speak to that. I've had clients that have competed before, and they're either in figure, or that maybe they are a bikini competitor, but they're not quite as lean. But they've had feedback that said you are too lean. You're based on your mechanics, based on your like body type, you would fare better in this competition if you weren't as gristly or like lean. So I think hearing that, what I hear is bring your best self, how you know to be, or how you feel to be most comfortable. Because, some people's body shapes, they're unique, they're different. We all have different bodies, and some just look better, with a little bit more body fat. So in my case, I wasn't quite received that way. But aside from that, costume, I think they said to me, go loud, go bigger, go bolder. So I kind of have always been I don't want to stand out too much. I don't want fluoro colors. I don't want massive feathers, So, that's going to encourage me to step into a place that I don't normally tread in my normal day-to-day life as well. I think I've always been very neutral. Like, I don't want to stand out. So it's been really challenging in that way too, because it has pushed me outside my comfort zone.
I can really appreciate the subjectivity of judging, because I've had the pleasure and honor of judging 2 shows this year for the WBF.
Oh, cool.
And so for the bikini and men's physique classes, I mean, there's subjectivity to all of it, but particularly for some of the kind of things that you're going for them, in terms of like, they call it like the it factor maybe, or like they got that stage presence, and kind of it kind of also leads itself to a younger looking individual maybe, and younger looking kind of physique and body. Whereas if there's not a master's class, it can be quite tricky for people.
Makes them stand out in a negative way.
Yeah. So I can definitely understand the challenge with it, because it feels almost wrong, but it's part of the sport. Even when you look at men's bodybuilding, some people just they might prefer the shreds, they might prefer like the big muscle bellies but less conditioned, what have you, or the more classic look versus whatever it might be. So I can definitely see that. Does it change? Obviously they said they weren't looking for as much that kind of performance enhancing kind of a look. Do you still feel now the pressure is still there for people to potentially go down that route?
Look, I think if I'll speak specifically to this federation, because that's who I compete with and who I will continue to compete with. I am going to go back next year and try and get that title. This will be the 6th year next year if I go for it. I've been like so close every year. So look, I think, their bikini division is definitely pro like femininity. It's nothing like NPC, IFBB at all. It's like, they're looking for charm and stage appeal, performance. The girls that have won the last couple of years are, Latinas. They've got big booties. It's like they've just been plucked off the beach,
Yeah.
They're just very confident, and it's less about your physique and more about your presence and your stage appeal. If I jump to a category above me, which is figure, that is still heavily like performance enhancing drugs, unfortunately. So, but that's why they have these distinct categories. And for me, like, I'm a lifetime natural athlete. I have never taken any performance enhancing drugs. So I don't, number one, have the desire to be in that kind of category. So there's never been any temptation for me to do that. But what I am seeing more in my category, because I sit nicely right in the middle, it's kind of like pretty muscular, pretty damn lean, but we're not as big as the girls in figure, but we're also a lot more toned. Why did I say that word? They're a lot leaner than the girls in bikinis. Gosh, I'm showing my age now. So, I think the challenges have been that, performance enhancing drugs are becoming more and more kind of acceptable. And I totally, look, I don't judge people that want to do that. My concerns really are for the individual's health. I've worked with enough people to the point where I've seen people come away from a coach that has really encouraged the use of steroids, and they're kind of saying, whoa, this is a little bit much for me. And I've seen some of the mild symptoms of their use, mild side effects, but I've also seen some people with really harmful side effects and symptoms. In some cases, like they've been in a life-threatening situation where they've had to go to hospital for their symptoms. So look, I think I'm in a position now where some of the girls that are in my category probably are using some of these different steroids and PEDs, but I just knowing the consequences, and some of them are truly irreversible, depending on how long you've been taking them and how much, I don't think that I'd want to risk that personally. So yeah, I will continue to bring myself to these competitions the best that I can. And hopefully next year I just take the feedback. I've noted the fact that they're still going to choose the leanest girl on the stage.
You just need to get a kilo off, blonde hair, and some fluorescent colors. You've won.
Exactly, man. I think I'm just going to get a wig at this point. God, I don't think I can handle it. You obviously don't have any experience coloring your hair, but for a woman to go from platinum blonde to like a level 3 dark color, which is what I've got in my hair now for those listening, my poor hair is probably going to be about 2 inches long if I decided to go back to blonde. So yo, if anyone's got a wig company, you just let me know.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
And I completely respect kind of the way you even answered and approached that question, I'm the same. Like, there's no morality towards it. It's just kind of part of
personal preference.
Yeah, it's kind of people. Everyone makes decisions in life, and like even stepping to stage and getting as lean as what we do, sometimes you could argue that in its own right is not necessarily healthy. But I think the reason I bring it up is, especially with social media and seeing all these kind of amazing physiques online, I think a lot of people are starting to understand that some of them are maybe not attained naturally, and kind of it can lead to false expectations. And then especially males, it's been found like males are more and more likely to kind of go on kind of the performance enhancing route before they really understood the consequences. But I don't think as many people realize how many women, to get kind of the look that they've got, have had to have gone to the point of using the performance enhancing drugs.
And I think, look, I've definitely worked with enough like professional female athletes that we can get really lean. It's scary as a natural athlete. But I think what makes the difference is the person's caloric intake. So that's where you tend to have the benefits. So for instance, let's say we've got me as a competitor. I might hit the stage at 130 pounds. And by the last few weeks of my diet, depending on, how long I've chosen to diet for, I might finish up or wrap up around 1,200 calories, or maybe a little bit less, with quite a bit of activity in order to finish off getting into that, level of body fat necessary. Whereas somebody that is getting on stage, let's say my identical twin, who's been on performance enhancing drugs for that prep and or parts of the season, maybe in their improvement season, and then they've come off. The challenge or the difference would be that their metabolic rate is probably going to be significantly enhanced because of that use. So when they finish their diet, they're on 2,000 calories still. And like, we look the same, but one of us has been grinding through absolute, horrible hunger. We've got so many unfortunate changes to our appetite regulating hormones when we prep that, your hunger is constant. Whereas somebody in the body of the performance enhancing drug user, if I got to eat 2,000 calories for the last few weeks of my prep, I would be absolutely like mind blown. I don't eat that. That wouldn't even be difficult. Like, I eat that many calories now just because I'm quite inactive. So it would be easier. I'm not saying that it discounts any of the hard work, because by gosh, some of these athletes, they train like beasts, like they really do. And I think I've grown to respect, those individuals, because once upon a time, I used to be somebody that was a little bit judgmental. And I would kind of say, well, they're cheating. Oh, it's easy. Sure. No, it's not easy. It's hard for everybody. It's just, there might be some small advantages from a calorie intake perspective. And maybe they don't need to do as much cardio or overall activity during that contest prep to get that lean, because their metabolic rate is significantly higher. So therefore they don't need to create that deficit through, extreme calorie restriction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's well described. And even thinking like a physique that has to, do so many steps, do so much cardio, be on such low food, it just isn't going to quite pop the same as a physique that's on much more food, on way less expenditure, just not going to look as stressed. So I can definitely see that. And I tried to give my own sort of performance enhancing via wearing a weighted vest for my last prep. I was wearing a 10 kilo vest by the end, just all day walking with it, like 20,000 steps. And I got a few extra 100 calories, but I don't know if it was worth it.
It's unfortunate, isn't it? I think there's again, we can look at, that's a really great example. I mean, there have been studies, or case studies at least, where, people have added the weight back on that they're losing, but the extra work that you have to do, there's certainly a point where there are diminishing returns. So, you might say within 60 minutes of walking normally, like at the beginning of your prep, perhaps you expend, 300 calories. And then at the halfway point of your prep, you do that same 60 minutes. You've now lost a little bit of weight. And maybe now you're only expending, 200 calories. By the final, section of your contest prep, that same 60 minutes, you may only be burning 100 calories now, or it might be even significantly less because of that adaptation. So there's those cardiovascular adaptations to exercise in response to the decreases in your lean body mass, because obviously we're going to get smaller. There's less of a need to expend calories as we lose mass. But also we start to become more subject to that, I guess, muscle loss too. It's just inevitable when you get that lean that you don't lose some muscle mass during a prep. So we've kind of got it like it's so much harder. It is. And even if you add that weight vest, like how much more you get out of it. I would love to see some more research with a large number of people using those weight vests to see what their energy expenditure is like, and is it significantly different, or like does it make an impact on their overall energy expenditure? Because we can look at someone's maintenance calories, and based on what I've observed, and again this is very much anecdotal, I'm sure there's more research coming through on this too, but it looks like we have more of a maintenance calorie range. So if your normal day-to-day maintenance is 2,000, you've probably got a plus or minus anywhere from 5 to 10%, where if you eat more calories or less calories, your weight isn't really going to change a whole lot, and you'd need a significantly notable change in your energy balance, whether that's done through exercise or whether that's done through nutrition restriction, to see a notable difference in weight loss or weight change. So I don't know what that says. Probably needs to have more research, but I've definitely done the weighted vest prep, and I got leaner, but it was also really uncomfortable. So, choose your sacrifice.
Yeah, it's there are no easy wins here. That's what it kind of looks like that way. And this naturals often do this. They try and find any little hack that could possibly make the process easier. Unfortunately, there is basically nothing. It is in the harshest ways, self-forced starvation. That's what it comes down to essentially. Even when you try all the diet hacks, that eventually has a rebound of a negative impact. So
yeah, it just makes you more fatigued at some other point. I know for me, I had tried to. So we have a 3-story house, and my kitchen's on the bottom, and our office is here on the top. So I caught myself a couple of times, and I've probably shared this story in our old house too, because we had a 2-story house. But I would start bringing up multiple drinks to sit at my desk, because I was starting to get fatigued. I'm I don't want to have to go down and get another drink when I get thirsty. So, I catch those behaviors during my prep, and I would make myself go down and get them. But you know what? I can tell you now, when I finished the end of my workday and knew that I still had to go and get more steps, it was I might have done those stairs up and down multiple times, but that just made me more fatigued when I was walking. So I'd have to walk more anyway. So it's everything is a trade-off. And at the end of the day, it's all really hard. Yeah, no, that you can't really say it better than that. That's so true. And actually, something related to your prep was, I believe you were trying to lose muscle even in some areas to kind of bring more the look that they were going for. I'd be interested to hear how that, just in my head, as a bodybuilder, I'm no way I could be losing muscle somewhere. So already it's kind of a bit of a weird thing for me. But how was that, and how did that kind of go for you? Oh, it was really weird. So if anyone listening, yourself as well, if you've got that competitive background and you've been in a sport that's performance-based, where there's always trying to be progression, and you're trying to grow, get stronger, move faster, you've got more agility, whatever it is. I've always been that way. So, stepping into the bodybuilding space, I've always been somebody that's trying to get progressive overload. I'm trying to add, even if it's a fractional weight plate one week, I'm always striving for more. And, the repercussions of that were great. I definitely grew a huge back and massive shoulders. It's funny, I was looking back at some photos the other day from our contest prep guidebook, and it had the figure position where I'm this, and I just about died because I haven't looked at those photos for a while. I'm oh my God, I had so much muscle. So the process for me to lose that muscle was basically everything that we've all been told to do. So, optimal meal timing, making sure that you've got protein at every single meal, in the adequate recommendations, if you're going to do cardio, try to split it up so that you get the most out of your resistance training. And, you follow all the evidence-based principles. So I basically had to do the opposite. And I basically stopped training my upper body. Well, it's specifically my back and my arms. Just to kind of fit that look a bit more. And personally as well, I think I prefer to be a little bit more feminine. I had just gotten so jacked that I honestly was not really happy in my body anymore, because I just wanted to be able to go and buy regular clothes. And I'm like, oh no, this sucks. But anyway, I just stopped training for a whole 18 months. I think I had in every single training program, 1 or 2 back exercises. That was it. I didn't train my arms for almost 2 years. I just completely stopped. And thankfully, I was able to step on the stage about 2.5 kilograms lighter. And I know for sure that was all from my back, because it is very clear from the pictures. So it took me that long to lose 2.5 kilos or 5 pounds. And that was basically detraining. And that kind of goes with all the literature that we have about, what does it actually take to start losing muscle? Because I'll have clients that are, about to go on a holiday and they're terrified that, oh my God, if I stop training, am I going to lose my muscle? Like, do I need to keep going to the gym? Like, how serious is this? Like, what's the damage, coach? Tell me. And it's surprisingly the volume decrease to see significant reductions in muscle mass is surprisingly great. So there's a couple of studies that I've referenced previously on podcasts and on social media, but the one in particular that I'm thinking of, there were 3 different, training protocols. There was a group that were basically detrained for the 16-week study intervention. There was another group that did about 1/9 of their normal training volume, and then another group that did 1/3 of their normal training volume. So in the younger adults group, the group that did 1/3 of their normal volume still gained muscle mass over that 16-week dietary training intervention. And interestingly, the group that did 1/9 of their normal training volume still maintained their muscle mass. So, in seeing that and just living that out, as an individual, it's so true. It took so much for me to lose that muscle. So I guess point of the matter is here, that's a really good thing for people to know, because if you put in the work, once you've got that muscle, it's going to stick around. It takes quite a bit to lose it, which is really reassuring. So, if you think about the 1-week holiday that you have, the only negatives that I really foresee happening is just the shift in energy balance. So let's say you're normally eating 3,000 calories a day and you're training 5 days a week and you do some cardio. If you continue to eat that same amount of calories on your holiday and you stop all your exercise, well, naturally, you're going to be putting yourself into a small energy surplus. And the downside of that, well, if you consider it a downside, I consider, hey, I've got a holiday and I'm going to eat what I want. But you would put on body fat. That would happen because you're in a small surplus. But would you lose muscle mass? No, unlikely.
Yeah, to hear you literally had to go out of your way, do everything like in the book wrong, basically, to
I had days where my normal, like if I was to hit my protein targets, based on my lean body mass, I usually sit somewhere around like 145, 140, but you can, higher or lower, anywhere in that range would be good. I was intentionally going about on my upper body training days. I would probably have 100 grams of protein. So I was doing it all wrong. I'm eating more carbs on those days. It probably backfired because I probably had more carbohydrate and energy available for those sessions. But yeah, I really had to do it all backwards, which was very strange, but it worked. So yeah.
Are you carrying that through now? Because I imagine if you start increasing everything, like the muscle memory would start kicking back in, it will start piling back on.
Yeah, so my current training programs, I've still given the intention to continue, with the WBFF as a federation next year. I need to, I know what physique they're looking for, so I'm not reintroducing a whole lot of back work. Right now, I believe in my current 12-week training block, which I've actually got available on the workout builder at the moment for people to do. There's only 2 back exercises. That's it. And I'm not doing any wide grips. Everything is close grips, kind of just isolating the rhomboids a little bit more. so that I avoid the big V taper, that lat spread that is a lot more common in, the figure girls. That's it. I'm doing lots of shoulder work and lots of glute work. And then, everything else is kind of fairly minimal.
Is there any exercises you miss? And did you find that by reducing those areas, it opened up more recovery and your performance increased for the other muscle groups particularly?
So I think there's pros and cons for doing this. So I think taking out a lot of those back exercises, obviously there's that potential for atrophy to take place. But, the consequence was I still need to be able to manage my energy balance. So I'm going to replace those exercises with something else so that I don't suddenly see a big decrease in my energy expenditure. So I started doing a lot more like lower body stuff, a lot more glute training specifically. For a lot of women, that's kind of, the ultimate goal, to have really nice, glutes, peachy glutes and like great legs. So the volume of those movements really increased. So I found myself probably not recovering quite as well from my lower body sessions, but it's all manageable. I think if you can plan out your training week accurately and you can give yourself some rest days in between, I think I managed it just fine. And the body adapts over time. The initial shift, I recall very distinctly being like, I can't walk. Wow, this is a big shift in volume to my legs all of a sudden. So, time again, I'd probably do it a little bit more gradually and just wear the consequence of reducing my energy expenditure by taking out those exercises. But it's like anything, you do adapt to it. And I think a lot of people really freak out when they've seen some of my programs, on our training platform, and it's like 4 days of legs and 1 day of upper. And they're like, that can't be right. Like, we've been told you cannot do, back-to-back days. Like, it's so wrong. That's overtraining. You're going to get injured. And my response to that is, well, no, if you are brand new, I'm not going to put you on a program like that. You have to gradually work your way into it. But, consider I, as a professional athlete, I've been doing this for a long time. So in order to make progress, you do, like, the volume gets pretty intense. And the more, like, the closer you get to your genetic potential, the harder it is to make gains. So for big increases in volume, the reward is very small. It's like I said before, it's like diminishing returns. So it gets so much more challenging to make advances the higher up you are in that experience level.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess by kind of reducing the volume on the back and maybe opening up the ability to do more for your lower body, or maybe seeing gains that you wouldn't have if you weren't able to specialize as extremely as that, which is perfect for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. The other thing I did was actually fill in the gaps with some more cardio, which was something that I hadn't done in a long time too. So again, not to be too extreme by just subbing out all of that chest and back work and arms. I think there's probably at least 20 sets or maybe more per week that I needed to fill. So yeah, I think I ended up doing just a little bit more cardio as well. And then instead of trying to replace it all with other exercises. So that was helpful. And again, I think whilst we know that cardio can interfere with some of those mTOR signaling pathways, which isn't a good thing for hypertrophy, everything exists on a spectrum. So it's not like I was going out and doing, 120 minutes of high intensity, cardio or something, or doing Peloton rides for 60 minutes every day of the week. It was, 20 minutes a day and maybe 2 times a week on non-training days. So, I think you just have to kind of plan these things carefully with your ultimate goal in mind.
That makes complete sense. And we'd actually already spoken a bit about like social media and people seeing highlights and things. And that brings me to the question of, in regards to your prep, and I haven't actually seen your YouTube, which I should have checked out, but I know you've got your YouTube and you're sharing bits of your prep there. Are there any bits that you think maybe from the outside in for people looking, whether or not they're things you maybe don't like to share, and I don't know, you might not even want to share it here, or like things that you feel like some competitors not a good enough job of sharing? But I know for me, for example, like I don't like to really say I'm having like a hard time because I don't really want to make it a reality. But are there any things like that where you're like, people need to realize how tough it can really be to get to that level of condition?
Yeah. So there's lots of things that suck. And again, I think one of the reasons that I have the following that I have is because of my ability to be transparent and just be vulnerable. And I think it makes me more relatable to people. So I used to be that way, where I didn't want to show people any of my weaknesses. I wanted to, stand up and be like, nothing can like harm me. I'm this hardworking, extremely driven person. I don't have any issues. When the fact of the matter is that's not true. Everybody struggles with stuff. So yeah, I think that's one of the unique things about me, is that I've shared a lot about that. I guess if I go back 10 years, the first thing that I would have been terrified to share or talk about was my struggles with my eating disorder. So, I'd suffered for 15 years with bulimia and binge eating disorder. And for about 10 of those, I had no, outside professional support. I just felt like I can manage this on my own. I'm a dietitian. I'm a fitness nutrition expert. I don't need to get support because, I know what I'm eating and what I'm putting into my body. Little did I realize it's got nothing to do with like having the ability to know about food. It's very much a psychological disorder. So, that's just my inexperience and immaturity probably coming through there. But, I've been very open and vocal about my struggles and, the things that I have learned going through that recovery process. So there's plenty of videos on my YouTube where I, very openly share like the whole story, like where it came from, how, which I think a lot of people can relate to. But, beyond the struggles of that, eating disorder, I think the hardest things for competitors, which people don't normally talk about, is number one, the time sacrifice. I think, we see all of these Instagram, influencers and YouTubers, bloggers, whatever, promoting or sharing, this information about their contest prep. And it appears to be extremely, easy for them. And the reality is I have had to make so much time sacrifice for other things that are important in my life. So, the main thing that springs to my mind is, before I was married, I lived on my own. I did not have children. I worked within like 3 miles of my home. And, I basically just had to be responsible for me. And I could also, craft and like create this pristine environment for me to live in order to not stuff up my diet. Like I only had things in my house that, I would eat that were appropriate for prep. And I can't recall the number of times I might have eaten an entire tub of Greek yogurt with some sweetener because I was so hungry, but that would be better than eating like a whole bag of French fries or a box of cookies. So, I had this extremely tailored environment that allowed me to do that sport. And, for women that are, they have to travel for work for hours on end a day, and they've got, public transport, and then they've got, children where they need to be picking up from school, dropping off at school, and other outside activities. And then maybe they run multiple businesses and they've got extra responsibilities. Now add in social life and then your relationships, where you have other like obligations. So for people like that, I think it's so important to realize that the bodybuilding lifestyle and the fitness influencer lifestyle, it definitely plays favor to certain types of people. And that a lot of the work that I do now with one-on-one clients is setting realistic expectations. So one of the things that I do with clients is have them write down, what are all your priorities in life? Like what are your current responsibilities, obligations, like the must-haves that you need to do in order to live. So they'll fill that out for me, and then I'll have them prioritize that list. And sometimes there's 5 things that are all equally important and a high priority. And then they've also got this fitness goal on the side. So I'll have to say to them, it is like, look, we've time blocked your schedule. I can see exactly how many hours all these other equally important tasks take you in a day. How can we make this goal of fitness fit? You go, like, come back to me next week. Like I will get them to do, like they'll have to send me their scheduling. So, and if they can't fit it and they can't find, an extra hour in the day, I'm like, well, that's okay. I just have you have to understand that this can't be we can't achieve the goal that you're wanting to achieve, or certainly not do it in the timeframes that you've signed up to work with me. Like if you've got 12 weeks, unfortunately, this is going to be a 2-year process based on your commitments. So, it's a lot of expectation setting to make sure that somebody really understands that their goals are feasible.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.
I think sorry, I was just going to say, I think that's so well said, because it's something I've reflected upon for myself personally, in that I know I have a huge advantage against other competitors because I have those things in terms of I work from home, I create my own schedule, I've got a dog and a girlfriend. That's like my responsibilities. I can go to the gym as many times as I need at various times. Like it's so much easier for someone in my position versus, like you said, I've had clients who have way busier schedules. Maybe they do night shifts and like they've got a ton of responsibilities. It just makes it so much harder.
Yeah. And that's yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think the saying, we've all got the same 24 hours in the day. I really can't stand that, because no, we don't. If you've got children and you've got multiple jobs or you run many businesses like we do, the reality is you've got other priorities. So you don't have the same number of hours in the day to commit to exercise, and that's okay, but that's also your choice. So we just have to kind of accept those realities. But I think, beyond, the time sacrifice, I'm trying to kind of bring us back to the original question, which was, what are some of the things that people maybe don't share when they're going through a competition? I think the extreme hunger and the extreme fatigue. Now, it doesn't start off that way. It can be pretty cool and cruisy for a few weeks, but there are like weeks on end where every single moment of the day, you are basically waiting for your next meal. You know about this because you compete too. So, you just have to grit your teeth, and not everybody has that same willpower. And I think if there are individuals that struggle with their emotional regulation, and they are somebody that utilizes food as their, stress response, or, if they are somebody that's prone to anxiety or compulsivity disorders, they will use food as a way to kind of detach, numb out, from that feeling that they're having. So, there are individuals that are prepping, which I've had these experiences myself, where even if you have the best intentions not to, eat when you're experiencing that extreme hunger and fatigue, because you don't have the coping skills to manage those emotions, you basically end up having to do double the work, because now you're eating in excess of your calorie requirements. You're no longer in a deficit. So you have to go over and above. And I can recall my earliest preps when I still was really struggling with my eating disorder. I think at some point I would have to do maybe like 60 minutes of higher intensity cardio per day, because of the amount of calories that I was binging on due to other life stresses that were related to my work or my finances or relationships, whatever it was. So, I think being self-aware for people that are deciding to compete, that's such an important thing. And to be able to recognize, like, I know what my weaknesses are. I know what stresses me out. I know what my triggers are, to be able to have like a management plan and to work on how to, like, psychologically, how can I, develop better coping skills? Because if you're not somebody that does that well, bodybuilding is a really hard sport. And I've worked with so many people that have really struggled with that. So that's another one. I think the sleeping difficulties is really difficult. We are more prone to having a hard time falling asleep and then staying asleep. The consequences of that is that if your sleep circadian rhythm changes at any point, whether it's only a 15-minute or 30-minute shift from your kind of normal routine, that has enough impact to make it more challenging to adhere to your macros, because those disturbances in sleep impact your leptin. They cause your leptin to go down, thus making your appetite and your hunger even more extreme when it's already hard in prep. So that's why sleep during prep is incredibly important. And one of the things that I learned throughout my more recent preps, actually, I think the studies kind of came out that showed this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I would save up all my calories to go to, an event on the weekend. Like, I did flexible dieting, so I'm calorie cycling. So I would fit in some alcohol, and that was fine. We can work that in without having any negative consequences unless you binge drink, but that wasn't the case. But I'd find myself staying up like significantly later and later. And I might go to bed at 2 o'clock in the middle of a prep on the weekends. Whilst I still did all my training, I meet every obligation, I hit my macros, I was still doing all the right things. We have been able to find out that sleep deprivation absolutely impairs MPS signaling. So even if you go and do the workout the next day, when you've been up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because of that sleep deprivation, you're less likely to get the same hypertrophy adaptations as you would have had you actually had a full night's recovery. So that for me was like, ooh, I'm going to start day partying now.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give up my social life, because that really, having connections and being able to socialize and go out and have a drink, like that is still really important to me. So, I just shifted around how I did things to make it work. So yeah, the sleep stuff is really challenging. Libido loss, that's a tough one. I mean, I can probably talk about this on another episode, but I have just started hormone replacement therapy myself today. My testosterone levels have been sitting at about a 5 to a 7 for a few months. And I finally just decided I don't want to feel like this anymore. I'm going to go and have hormone replacement therapy. So that's an interesting story. I'll probably do something on my social media about that. But yeah, I think the libido loss, and then like depression, the mood changes. There's so many things that are negatively impacted that people don't want to share with you, because like I said, we want everybody to like us. Like, why do we do podcasts? Why do we put up social media posts? Like, we want that attention, because we want people to like us and engage with us and, think positively and highly of us. So to be vulnerable and share those struggles, that takes a really unique person to kind of be able to share in that way. So yeah, they're the main ones. And strength decreases, muscle loss, the normal types of things. Performance decreases, low energy, but I've probably exhausted that list.
Yeah, there's quite a few there for sure. And I think, in regards to kind of being honest about it, I think there's some people look at it and they almost think, oh, this is a choice, so I shouldn't complain about any of it. And I think the key thing here is just the fact you're going through these things doesn't mean you're complaining about it if you're telling people about it. Like being hungry all the time, that's legitimately what you're feeling. It's not like, oh man, I'm so hungry all the time. You can say, I'm really hungry all the time. Because yes. As you know, it's a choice. Like you probably get it the same way. If people are complaining about it all the time, you're kind of like, well, you did choose to do this. Like, yeah. So, but if you're just telling people like, yeah, I haven't got a libido, that sucks, but like, it's part of the course. So, so I can completely see that. And the sleep one is, I mean, like you said, over the last few years, I think it was, I've forgotten who wrote it, but Why We Sleep was the book that came out, which I think just so many people caught it and read it and kind of transformed people's opinions on, oh, wow, sleep's actually super important, especially for bodybuilders, because it was Arnie who kind of came out and was like, like if you've got like more to do, it would be like in prep, I haven't got time. You'd be like, well, sleep faster, like do 6 hours of sleep versus 8. It's like, well, actually probably is going to have like a real negative feedback.
Right. And I think that was the other thing. I probably didn't mention this. There was a study that looked at people that were getting up early in the morning, like to change their circadian rhythm, to get up, to get their cardio done, for the purposes of like energy expenditure to, improve their rates of fat loss. But I guess the outcome of that paper was that it might actually not be doing you any favors. In fact, the extra energy expenditure that you think that you're doing with the cardio, it's actually not being as effective because it's impeding all of your other processes, later in the day. So like, get your sleep, don't get up at 3 a.m. just to get your cardio in. Like, you might be better off from an overall total daily energy expenditure standpoint to just rest and then have a higher quality, more energy expending resistance training session, instead. So yeah, I've never been one to get up at the 3 a.m. hour and do any cardio.
No, yeah,
I'll do a longer prep for that.
Yeah, that's really well said, because I think it just has to be said, like, is it like the foundation to your training and nutrition is like sleep here? Like, even for, I see people like are studying and they're staying up late to like study or whatever it is. It's like, well, you're probably not going to learn it as well, and you're probably better taking the sleep and kind of shifting your schedule around or what have you. Out of interest, Holly, did you find, in terms of emotions, did you get a sense of apathy? Like, did you feel like emotionless and kind of you didn't care about things at one point?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. So I think that kind of just comes along with the decreases in the sex hormone production. So, as the prep goes on, as your progesterone levels start to lower, your estrogen levels start to lower, testosterone, definitely lower, thyroid, like all of these are hormones that are heavily involved in our, regulation of energy. And that internally like manifests as like you're just feeling flat, like you've just got nothing. And I would say my life circumstances have probably contributed to some of that as well. But that's definitely a noticeable and frequently reported finding in studies in bodybuilders, and natural bodybuilders especially. So yeah, I think I've definitely struggled with a bit of depression. But part of that is a symptom of not being able to be as social anymore. Like, I can't go out and just have a good night or go to the movies and enjoy a meal that's in a bistro, or it's like you don't get to have the same fun experiences in your normal day-to-day life either. So it's kind of multifaceted. I think you've got that hormonal shift that can contribute to the change in mood, and then also the execution of your like the priorities in your life, the domains of health. If you can't have connections anymore, like that's going to have an impact. So I've enjoyed prepping with friends. That's kind of made it a bit more fun in that you go to the gym each day, you've got someone that you're committed to training with. So I've definitely noticed not having a training partner in my last prep, I was not motivated. And also I was not motivated when I was doing prep because I didn't have the goals of strength. Like, I had to just go in and do like an RPE RPE 6 for a back row, or, and we were talking before about trying to lose muscle. So the incentivization and the thing that drew me to the sport in the first place, which is like my competitiveness, like that's gone. So it's like, I'm just going into the gym to do a half-assed job, So there's so many reasons that your mood can change, but I'm guessing it depends on the individual.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to say it, because clearly you want to compete again, and clearly we keep coming back. Like, I've competed multiple times despite all these negatives. It's still there's plenty of positives too, but we might have to touch on that in another podcast, and so too with the HRT even, HRV. So that would be really interesting, I think, for the listeners, and I'm interested to hear about it too. So but thank you for your time, Holly. If people want to learn more about you, if they want to check out the coaching that's going to be coming out, where should they head?
Yeah, so I am most active on Instagram and YouTube. So my Instagram handles is the same as the YouTube. It's Holly T Baxter. So if you go to my profile, you'll see a little link, and it basically shows all of my products and services. And you'll be able to find out more details about coaching very soon. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Perfect. And I think probably when this is out, because we have a few in the tank, your coaching will be live. So hopefully that'd be nice if it was live. I'm sure it will be. And I'll make sure that's all linked below. And again, thank you, Holly, for coming on. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you so much.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.